Hello, bearded bee people. Welcome back to B&K Bees for the first legitimate bee video that I've done in like 7 months. I'm super excited. I am going to be talking about a tough subject today, and it's lessons that I wish I had known when I started that I eventually ended up learning throughout my first few years as a beekeeper. We got started into bees because my wife's family found out that there was some beekeeping in their ancestry. So we as a whole, four of us, her aunt, her mother, my wife and I, went to a local beekeeper and kept a hive on his property in his bee yard that first year. We had so much fun. I personally was transformed. I was obsessed with bees. That first day with these bees flying around and learning all of these things about their life cycle and about the queen and finding the queen and watching the honey build up, it was just all so exciting. It changed my life. I was a beekeeper forever and I knew it. But I thought I had learned more than I did. So we bit the bullet. We went in big and we bought 3 packages plus all the boxes, all the covers and bottom boards and feeders and all that stuff that you'd need, and installed them the next year on our own. The first mistake we made that day was my wife opened the first queen cage with the cork facing up. I very specifically remember I was working on one and she's working on one, and she said, I don't think that was supposed to happen. And I said, what? And she said, I think the queen just flew out. And of course, we look in the cage and yeah, she's gone for sure. So that was mistake number 1. Obviously, that's a really beginner mistake that hopefully you haven't made. But if you have, open it with the queen candy down and put your hand over the hole immediately. But mistake number 2, and the one that lasted longer, was not pressing all the frames together completely. We had the queen cage wedged in between some frames, which is a horrible way to do it because bees move around and shift things, and those cages fell. Those cages fell, and that extra space in between those frames was used by bees, as I always say, to get creative. Bees are naturally inclined to make the most of all of their space. So seeing that extra space, obviously they try to fill it in with parallel combs. And because of the fact that those frames are pushed out, those parallel combs are not on the foundation. So that caused a problem that existed throughout that entire year. If it happened now, I would just cut it off in the beginning of the year and have them start fresh, in the early portion of the year when they want to be drawing wax anyway. But I didn't do that. I didn't know what to do. And that problem got worse and worse and worse as the year went on, to the point where I think I was only able to put 6 or 7 frames in those initial boxes by the end of the year. It was really, really a mess. The other mistake that we made, that is sort of the big story of this video, is not treating for mites that first year, or the second year. We didn't get a good mite lesson from our mentor. It was not high on his priority list because he planned on buying bees every year anyway, and he was just in it for the honey. And we can't fault him for that because of the fact that he had just always done it like that. I think that he was taught to keep bees like that. And so that was the lesson that we had taken away from it, that they were, essentially a product that you bought, that you made some money from, and that you bought again the next year and made some more money from. Unfortunately, that's a very wrong mindset to take into beekeeping. It's a dangerous one that can harm your neighboring beekeepers. But we didn't know, and so we went forward into that first year with those 3 colonies of our own with absolutely no mite plan. The problem with this is these colonies went in massive. I mean, they went in with 3 boxes tall, many hundreds of pounds of honey. It was just really what I thought was a perfect situation for going into winter. The big problem, and what I now refer to as the 2-year fallacy, is the fact that we got some bees alive throughout that first year on our own. We went in with 3 colonies and 2 came out. Now, they were shells of their former selves. They were only a couple of frames each, and there were deformed wings all over the place. Bad sign that I had no idea about. But we got bees through that first winter. So when I started looking more and more into bee health, I was swayed toward the treatment-free beekeeping mindset because I know people that treat and they lose their bees, and I didn't treat, and I had 2 colonies come through out of 3. So I thought, there must be something that these people don't know. No, there was something that I didn't know, and I learned it in a fairly harsh way. So that next year we went nuts. I ended up selling a couple of nukes, learning how to split my hives, and it was a great year in terms of learning how to manage bees. I did a lot. I did so many splits. I learned a lot that next year. I think we ended up that year at 8 or 10 hives, and once again we did not treat it all, and I got more bees through that second year. I don't exactly remember how many, but it was more than 50%. So once again, I'm emboldened in this treatment-free mindset. There must be something that the industry is not aware of, because me as a beginner, I got bees through 2 years in a row, more than half, and I hadn't treated yet at all. So that third year was the start to my beekeeping as a business mindset, and I went split happy. I think, we came out in just under 10 hives. We bought, I don't know, 10 packages, 15 packages, something like that. So we ramped up pretty quickly, near 50 or so hives. Throughout that year, we lost a few here and there. So what reached 50 at maybe the earliest portion of summer was down to about 35 when winter started. So I had 35 colonies going into my third winter alone. I still had not applied a treatment at all, and we had invested thousands of dollars into this bee operation. Not only that, but I had changed my lifestyle. I was Brett the Bee Man at that time. That winter was so hard. It makes me want to cry, to be honest, because of how hard that was. So we went in, I think, with 35 colonies, and we came out with 3. So we lost 32 of 35 colonies that third year. And I didn't know, initially, when I first got out there and started lifting up these tops with my wife, and I'm mad. I'm so mad at myself, really. But I was upset, and the first thing that came to my mind was mites. Was the fact that the only thing that I'd ignored in all of these books and articles and all these YouTube videos that I've watched, I've taken so many pieces of advice from all of these incredible people, except for the pieces of advice in regards to mites, because I was convinced, I was under the impression that is given under the 2-year fallacy. So when I came out that winter, we were lucky to have had Megan Milbreth of Michigan State University come to our local bee club and speak. And that talk, mixed with the horrific winter that we had experienced, transformed me as a beekeeper. Not only did she talk about how truly natural these organic acid treatments are, and how ridiculous it is for us to think of these things as unnatural, she also painted it in a very clear picture, talking about bees like your dog or your cat or your horse or your dairy cow. These are not necessarily wild animals. While bees are certainly closer to their wild counterparts genetically and behaviorally than a little dog is to their wolf ancestors, these bees are certainly not in natural situations. European honeybees and varroa mites did not evolve together. This is a foreign parasite that has a unique ability to destroy honeybee colonies. So yeah, the things that I took away from Megan's speech were, number one, it's on us, it's our responsibility to keep these bees alive and healthy. Number two, I can harm my neighboring bees and the general bee population in my area by ignoring the mite load. Number three, the diseases that come with these mites and that outlive your bees themselves are such a danger that it is on us, it is incumbent upon us to pay attention to these and to keep our disease, our viral levels low. But the big one was how natural formic acid and oxalic acid is when you look at what components make up the hive. You know, oxalic and formic acid are both evident in honey. And so to think of these as some synthetic foreign substance is really not looking at it correctly. So after that speech, on the way home, I had this conversation with my wife and I said, I think we need to start treating our bees. She said, I agree. I don't know whether she had thought that before, but she agreed immediately. And that year we treated once with formic acid, and I can't remember exactly how many we got through, but it was 75 or 80%. It was a really, really good winter. Now, some of that success that winter was just due to the fact that a lot of them were new packages and the viral levels had not reached maximum capacity, because we only treated once, and that was in September, which is too late. So even though we made the jump to be more responsible beekeepers, or at least to attempt to be more responsible beekeepers, we were not doing it to its fullest extent. We did not use the formic acid at the right time. And we were not vigilant of our mite loads every month as we should have been. But nonetheless, we did have great success that next winter. The following winter after that, we, through just more research and more general respect given to the field experts like Randy Oliver and Megan Milbroth, we treated, I think, 3 times, testing every month. And honestly, since then, since that 4th winter, I think we've averaged around 75% survival. And this is including other mistakes that we've made. One where I had a yard that did not get any southern sun throughout an entire winter and stayed encased in ice until May. We lost 18 of 20, I think, in that yard. So I'm taking these other mistakes into account when I'm saying that we've averaged 75% survival since then. And the big takeaway, the big thing that I want you to take away as a new beekeeper is, number one, please take people's overwintered survival rates with a grain of salt if they're trying to sell you their method. And number two, try to look at things in this truly scientific mindset. Try to ponder the fact that foregoing mite treatment, foregoing mite control is allowing these viral levels to go wherever they naturally will. And that's a dangerous thing. That's a dangerous thing for your bees, it's a dangerous thing for your neighbor's bees, and it's a dangerous thing for the native bumblebees that are on the same flowers. So this is on us. This is our responsibility to keep these bees alive and healthy. And it is not that difficult. It requires a mite wash 1 time a month, so what, maybe 6 times a year, and really a treatment twice probably. If you're following the threshold levels that are written out on bkbees.com and on all the videos that I've done, you're going to see success, I promise you. But the big thing, the general concept, whether you just take away one idea or one sentence, is that these bees are more akin to your lapdog than they are to some wild living in a tree bee colony from the 1300s, and that is very much our fault. It's very much the fault of migratory beekeeping and putting these bees into unnatural situations and for breeding them for honey production and gentle temperament as opposed to overall health. So, lastly, before I leave this this treatment-free stuff, I do want to say there are certainly people who keep bees alive and healthy in treatment-free environments. I'm not saying that people don't. I know people who do. My point is, it's very hard to keep bees alive and healthy with all of the tools at your disposal. As a new beekeeper, use those tools, get good at that, and then try some treatment-free program. A lot of these treatment-free people that are truly successful are in isolated areas separated by mountains from other bee yards, and in these unique situations where other beekeepers' mistakes can't affect your bees. But just look at anybody who records their mite loads every month throughout the year, and you'll see that it can jump so quickly, so abruptly, to such a deathly level that every single month we need to be checking our mite loads if we want to ensure ourselves some bees to hang out with in the spring. If you want to ensure yourself some honey and ensure yourself some success, some bees to split from and some bees to teach other people from, maybe gift somebody a nuke, it is on you to keep those bees healthy and virus-free as much as you can. And to that end, I think that the organic acids are the best option. So I'm sorry that this lessons learned early on video took such a mite turn. I do have a couple more lessons I'm going to get to here before the end of this video, but I very much wanted to impress that upon you guys. I was a victim of this mindset, and it hurt me badly, financially, emotionally. I mean, and in my ego, it was a tough visit to the bee yard that March 28th or whatever it was. When we saw that we'd lost 33, what was it, like 33 of 36 or something like that. We came out with 3. It was ridiculous. So please don't make those mistakes. Please use all of these tools that you have to make your bees healthy and to keep your bees alive. Take my advice. Don't learn from your own mistakes. Learn from the ones that I'm talking about. So yeah, let's get on to some other mistakes that I made that I think are a little bit easier to digest. Number one, I guess it's probably number 3 at this point, but the next one would be using the Boardman entrance feeders. So you go to buy a hive kit from an equipment supplier, and a lot of times they'll include a Boardman entrance feeder, and that's just essentially because it costs like $1.50, and then they can advertise that you have everything you need in this one kit. And if you don't know what a Boardman entrance feeder is, it's a little dish that a jar sits in that goes into the entrance of your beehive. And the problem with this is, number one, you can really only put about a quart at a time on a colony, and number 2, it really creates for some interesting robbing situations early and late in the year. So you really don't want to have open food when there's not food available to all the colonies hanging out directly at the entrance of a hive, because if that hive is in any way depleted in their effort or depleted in their ability to defend themselves, they'll get robbed out, and that can be a pretty devastating thing pretty quickly. We did not have a full rob out happen because of the Boardman entrance feeders, but I include this in this mistake because I bought so many of them and spent so much time filling up these quart jars just to realize that I could fill up a Rubbermaid in the yard in 1/10 of the time. So there are better options for feeding. Don't get taken in by the one purchase hive kit with the Boardman entrance feeder. I mean, buy the kit if it's financially a good idea, but get yourself a Rubbermaid and make yourself a communal feeder tub, or buy yourself a frame replacement feeder. Those are much better ideas. So the last mistake is less a practical mistake and more a general one, and that is getting too full of yourself, as I did. It's important to realize that other people have more experience than you, and that these mistakes other people made that they're telling you for a reason. I ignored too many people who were telling me that mite control was an important thing. I ignored too many people who told me that treating with formic acid was a really, really clean and natural way to kill some mites and keep some healthy bees. I ignored that advice to the eventual loss of dozens of colonies. And so yeah, just really, really try at every step where you feel you've learned a new thing and you've got a new beekeeping ability to just take that with a little bit of a grain of salt and be open-minded when people are telling you things. Also, take what they tell you with a grain of salt and weigh that against what other people are telling you as well, because people get full of themselves and get a little bit boastful. So definitely watch out for that. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. That was not an easy conversation to have. I don't like reliving that. I do certainly hope that you guys don't have to go through that because I just relived it. So please take what I had to say to heart. Thank you very much for watching. There's going to be some more videos here really, really soon. Get out there and have some fun with your bees. See ya.